Hello, welcome to Direct Joy. My name is Cherie Joy, and I am a psychologist and a psychotherapist and an eco-psychotherapist. And this is Direct Joy. So Direct Joy comes to you to bring some free accessible mental health and emotional well-being information, basically. So my experience of working in the NHS and charities and private companies is that we have a lot of information that we're basically really busy to share. And I've been in private practice now for a number of years, and I want to share some of the stuff that I know that I come across, that comes into my inbox and comes into my DMs and comes across my life and that I experience, and some of the insights that the psychology and psychotherapy world have to offer. It is very much caveated by the fact that this is my take on it, and I do draw on some really key thinkers and some experience which I will cite, but basically this is the world according to Cherie, Direct Joy. So we've been away for a few weeks, typically doing the things that I love to do outside as the summer months are coming in, although you wouldn't know it from the weather outside. I've been running some women's circles, some workshops, so check that out if you're interested and you're in the local area of Bexhill in East Sussex. And I've been working behind the scenes with my team to bring about some extra kind of direct joy with a boost, which is going to be available on my website, so some remote access stuff as well. That's where I'm at the moment, so check that out. I'm on all the usual social media channels and my website www.cjoy.co.uk. If you subscribe, you get all of the latest updates, so you'll get all of my emails. It's not long and wordy, it's short, sweet, but I do blogs as well, so you'll be able to catch up on all of that. So please subscribe, because then you'll get all of the latest information. You'll get all of the stuff about workshops. You'll get all of the stuff about kind of where I'm at and what I'm doing. So please do. So today, what is our subject? Our subject today is not what I said we were doing in the last one, if you caught the replay. We will be coming back to that. But today is talking about transitions. So one of the things that I'm hearing an awful lot over the last 2 or 3 weeks is, and hello to everybody who's watching live, and hello to everyone who's on the replays. It's great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. What I'm hearing about a lot over the last couple of weeks, and what I'm experiencing as well, is about transitions. And transitions can mean so many different things at so many different times to us. As I always say, that's the kind of usual caveat, isn't it? And I want to focus today on the fact of, what's going on with transition specifically at the moment. We have, as is life, there is births and deaths and changes and illnesses, job changes, divorces, heartbreak of so many different kinds. We can be going through enormous amounts of health things. We can be going through financial difficulties. There is always transitions and changes afoot. There is always something around that will be floating around, whether, is there ever a stillness? Is there ever a real stillness of life? I'm not sure whether there is, and do we actually really want there to be? Transition is defined as kind of initially as an age development kind of phase, so more of a developmental thing. And I think that's an interesting take. We're going to come back to that kind of much later at the end of Direct Joy. But what is going on with that? I know as a mother and an auntie, and if you're ever surrounded by children for any period of time, you will notice that there are phases that they go through. So, and you hear people say, oh, it's just a phase, and and then you notice their developmental leap. You notice these things. If you hadn't seen my nephew and saw him yesterday, and my niece yesterday, but my nephew particularly, he's like grown into this person. He's no longer a baby. How astonishing it is, but actually how normal. Yeah, of course, they're growing up, right? I remember my uncle saying to me, if anyone ever says, oh, you've got them big, turn around and say, well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm designed to do. And it's true, but what are we surprised by, and what happens with these leaps? I know as a mother, the teething thing is the particular thing of, you think the worst is you're up at night in the wee of the night, and they're in absolute agony, and you're trying to do whatever you're trying to do to the latest thing that is actually going to help this transition from, and you're kind of, God, why did you give children teeth? How did this developmental hitch get through, and what is going on with that? And one of the things that someone has told me, both through teething and through divorce, was that the darkest hour is the hour before dawn. Now, I Googled that, but actually it's true, and I'm sure you've heard me mention it before. The darkest hour is the hour before dawn, the hour before the sun comes up, the hour before actually it breaks through. That's the darkest hour. And it certainly does feel like that when we're going through these developmental leaps, when we're going through them physically, when we're going through them emotionally, when we're going through them in applying for a job, and when we're going through them in birth, as we come through the birth canal, both as the baby and as the mother and as the father or the partner supporting that process. Actually, that is the hardest transition, and that is the point where you go, hands up, I'm surrendering, I'm going home. And literally that happens in birth. You say, I'm ready to go home now. You tell the midwife, I'm done now, I'm going home. Yeah, the contraction's over, I'm done. And it's like, no, the baby's coming. It's coming out. The job is coming, or the answer to the job application is coming. The process that you're going through is going to come to an end, and the worst is nearly over. But there's something about the fact of why are transitions so difficult? Okay, there's physical pain. Okay, there's sleeplessness. Okay, there's all of these things that are kind of understandable. It's understandable, okay? But let's go a deeper level, as I like to do in Direct Joy. Let's go to actually what's going on. What is reinforced here that is actually quite comfortable? We're actually in quite a comfortable place, and we don't want this to change. What is it about this is uncomfortable but normal, where what we say our ego is at play, and that we're in a place where actually I don't want this to end. I don't want a new beginning. In the 1980s, there was a classic book based on some papers by a guy called Bridges, and it's called Transitions, and it talks about the fact that we begin with an end. There is no new growth unless we have an ending. That separation and loss happens before the new. Now, to me, that's pretty profound. That's pretty, and I get reminded of this, regularly when people come to therapy. It's because usually when they first come, they're in a point of crisis, or they're in a point of need, or in their point of wanting to explore and wanting to reach out for this new. And actually something has to end for there to be a beginning. When people say, I can't possibly leave my job because no one can do it better than me, I am absolutely indispensable. And actually, what are we then getting in the way of the next person who could grow that role, who could grow that company, who could grow themselves? And what are you getting in the way of yourself, of not going to your next role? We find ourselves staying in the uncomfortable normal position because actually the uncomfortable normal means that we don't have the ending. We don't have the ending that invites the new beginning, which reinforces then this cycle that we continue to go through, which may be painful, may be difficult, may be an unhappy place, maybe an unhappy job, maybe an unhappy situation in family, maybe an unhappy financial cycle, maybe an unhappy habit, maybe anything. This is, transitions are not restricted to anything at anyone. And acknowledging that there will be a separation, and there will be a loss, and there will be a grieving, there will be a disenchantment and a disengagement. So what is it we're identifying with when we're saying, actually, no, I don't want transition. No, I don't want change. No, I don't want growth. Actually, we're identifying with saying we want it to stay always the same. And do we really? Does that really invite a place where we really want to be? And what would it be like to welcome in more the fact of going through that? I remember someone saying to me, welcome every contraction, every single one. And when they came at first, I was like, oh yeah, cool, I can welcome in every contraction. But when the contractions really start coming, when we really start to birth the new, physically, emotionally, mentally, paperwork-wise, anything, when we start to birth the new, that pain that actually we go through, is it pain? Is it a strong sensation? What is coming the other side of it? What is the blessing that we are welcoming? What is the new identity that's going to break the cycle? Because fundamentally that's what we're doing, right? We're breaking the cycle. And there has to be a grieving. So in that grieving, excuse my cat, in that grieving, there is going to be, how do I deal with this? What is going on? What is the most easy, graceful path that we can go through? How do I find the joy? How do I find the perspective change? How do I find the blessing? And it can, that can invoke a lot of rage. It can invoke a lot of kind of, what are you talking about? There's a loss, there's a separation, there's a rejection. This is feeding into all my abandonment issues. This is feeding into everything, that, how do I even think about stabilizing from this position? And we talk a lot about coping strategies, and I just want to divert just for a bit to talk about coping strategies, because I have a lot of people that come to me and say, we need to work on my coping strategies. I need to work on the way that I deal with this. And there's a kind of social narrative on this, which you've heard me say a million times. So refer back to old Direct Joys and future Direct Joys, because I'm sure to go on about the social narrative again. But actually, today I want to focus on what do we say coping strategies are? Because I haven't gone there with this. And it's about lowering our expectations. So this is the definition of coping strategies. To lower our expectation, to find people to help us to do certain things that may help, to take more responsibility for the situation, and to problem solve. Now, I fundamentally can't sit with this, okay? Because if you are going through separation, loss, disengagement, disenchantment, you've lost something. You're going through a transition, which is bringing about, illness, divorce, birth, death, changes, grieving, of sometimes multiple things happen at the same time. Lower my expectations, take more responsibility, problem solve, and get others to help me do. At this point, reading the list, I'm disempowered, disengaged. I'm not sure how I can lower my expectations more. When we go through these things, sometimes it's hard to brush our teeth. How can we lower our expectations lower than that? And I think there's a thin line here between grieving the separation and loss and actually depression. And we need to be really wary of these things, of actually where are we at and what do we need help with? Because actually one of the things that is, the things that are really helpful in my experience and the experience of those that I've worked with, is that actually acknowledging this stuff, just being straight up, no BS, acknowledge it, talk about it, seek understanding that fits with you, and go to the places that you expect that help for you. Now, that can be a variety of things. We all come from a different cultural, socio, family setup. We all have different experiences. That's what makes us wonderfully human, right? And divinely different and unique and creative and wonderful. But when the chips are down, what is it that we can find in our rituals? What can we find in our stabilisation? What can we find in our list? What can we find in our flow? What can we find in our dance that actually allows us to go through the day, the morning, the hour that we wake up, the first 5 minutes that we wake up, to actually be in that place that allows the transition to be much more graceful, much more easy, to liberate us. When we begin with the end, it gives us a different viewpoint. It gives us a different perspective, but it gives us also different tools, not strategies, not coping, but different tools. The aim then becomes different, because the aim then is to be more of you. It allows you to welcome in more of you. And when there's more of you, you are able to identify with you. And if you're able to identify with you, you're able to move through these transitions, move through the pains, the physical, the emotional, the mental, the soul path, whatever it might be. You're able to actually say, this is me, this is who I am, this is where I'm at. And any step back is not a step back, it's a movement, yeah? It's all about the movement. We are allowing ourselves to flow with the movements of life. Acknowledging where we're at. Talking, seeking, identifying and expecting what we need to be are unique, and listing this stuff, yeah? What is it you like to do? Do you like to hear the birds sing? Do you like to have a bath? Do you like to have a shower? Do you like to brush your teeth with an electric or a manual toothbrush? Do you like to go camping? Do you like to paddle? Do you in the sea? Do you like to swim? Do you like to walk fast? Do you like to read? What do you like to do? What sparks you up? Because they're the places that actually, through even the darkest times, they can be the dawn after those darkest times. And allowing the beginning to happen, you have to have an end. And that's not what we want to hear, but that is the truth, because that is what happens. It's uncomfortable, but it's much like the tide. It goes in and it goes out. It goes in and it goes out. But the one thing to remember with that is that there is a neutral place which allows us to break the cycle. When the tide isn't coming in and isn't going out, there is a neutral pause. There is that place. So just allowing that all the time to be engaged with yourself, even though you're going through loss, even though you're going through the grieving, really identifying, really digging deep with who you are, because that's what we need for the growth. We need there to be endings to allow for the growth. It becomes more complex when we're talking about births and deaths, and the natural flow of who we are to be human, and noticing who we are to be human, really, and that humanness of all of us. And my direct joyness in that is that actually the joy is in the living, the joy is in the relating, the joy is in the engaging with each other, and the joy is in the humanness of who we all are, and the lives that we choose to lead, the way that we choose to transition, and reaching out when we need to is absolutely vital to being who we are. And that can be tough. That can be really, really tough, So acknowledging that is really important to be able to get to that place of joy. They say that joy... I've forgotten it. I'm going to have to post that one up. But joy is you get to joy through grief. And I can't remember the exact quote, but basically it's the path to joy is through grief. And that can be sad and absolutely painfully hard. But you aren't alone. None of us are. We're all in it together. Someone said to me the other day, you never really know what's going on in someone else's boat. And that's true, you don't, because they will be going through their own struggles too. And as long as we can look about to each other's boats and we can acknowledge that, that is really, really vital. So that is Direct Joy for today. I hope that that was helpful. I hope that an understanding between the difference between coping strategies and actually tools for how you choose to live is helpful. Get in touch if you've got any questions. Get in touch if you've got any critiques. Get in touch if you've got any suggestions for future Direct Joys. I look forward to seeing you, if not next week, the week after. And keep watching, keep subscribing, and have a really blessed and peaceful and wonderful week. Okay, take good care. Peace and love.